So, Shadow of the Erdtree has been out for like 2 days or 3. Who's keeping track these days? Not me. And yeah, already it's widely seen as a masterpiece, and I agree, it's more Elden Ring. Doesn't fundamentally change really anything about it. The same flaws that you would have with Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree carries over. But wow, FromSoft is just, they're one of the best studios in existence right now. It's just amazing at how awesome they are. And it's just very refreshing because so many studios these days turn to trash. I'm looking at you, Arcane. Oh God, you remember when Arcane was good? But that's a side point. Since its release, there's been discourse on how difficult Shadow of the Erdtree is, and if it's justified or good or whatever. And I have some thoughts as a person who doesn't really play hard games and someone who does like to just play on easy mode, at least for the first playthrough, before racking up the difficulty settings later on. This game, of course, doesn't have difficulty settings. The settings that you have are your character and your build, and that kind of dictates how easy or of a hard time you're going to have with this game. And it seems that the difficulty on this expansion is quite polarizing. In fact, Shadow of the Erdtree has been getting review bombed, as seen here. And as someone who plays these games more for exploration and role-playing than like the fighting, I'm confused. What do you think you're getting into with a FromSoft DLC? All of the other ones they've produced have been harder than the original game. Each expansion that they've done has assumed mastery or a competence of the base game, and the new stuff is for players who have already thoroughly engaged with the systems in that base game and want something a bit new and more. Like, it's not going to be easier. They're not going to make an easier time. Now, I'm still in the very beginning of the game. I've been that lion puppet thing in the castle, and I've done some exploring, and I have gone up against Verlena so many times I've lost count, where it's just clearly I'm not at the right level for that. And who knows, maybe by the end, I might not even beat the game, not with my main characters. I have a character on PC with everything unlocked, basically at the highest level it could be. Maybe that will be the character that will see me through everything. But with the characters I'm playing with on PlayStation 5, my original characters, the Unga Bunga build and my sword spell build, both around level 240, who knows? But it's not warranted to leave a bad review just on that. Now, I do have critiques with how they manage difficulty, like the weapon upgrade system sucks. Like, I'm picking up new weapons that I'm reluctant to use because for them to be viable, I'd have to spend smithing stones on, and there's only so many of them, especially in the higher tiers. And I don't know, it makes me reluctant to just experiment willy-nilly the way I did in Armored Core 6, where everything is basically the baseline of its power, and you modify its power through the OS tuning that you do that transfers between all your builds. I also do have mixed feelings with the Spirit Ash aspect of the game, because as someone who does use them a lot, because I'm not really playing these games for the thrill of the combat, I'm playing the game to just experience it. I don't really mind, I'll probably use them regardless, but I can imagine from a designer standpoint, they are designing bosses with the acknowledgement that this tool is available. So people who are leaving bad reviews, they might be either reluctant to use the Spirit Ashes or reluctant to use the summons, and in their head, the true playthrough of a FromSoft game is strictly solo. Now, I think that's silly. I think FromSoft gives you all these tools and they expect you to use them. And I'm sure I'm going to be using every tool I have at my disposal to get through the game. And while an argument can be made that this design focus to almost always include Spirit Ashes or a summon kind of detracts from the main experience, I think it's silly that it would drop a person's personal score that much lower, at least for the DLC. I mean, you know what you're getting into. This is the game that has Millennia, for fuck's sake. I didn't enjoy that boss. and I certainly will complain about it, but she's also optional, and this DLC is also optional. It's all voluntary. You don't need to beat the game at all or to buy this to have a complete experience. This is lagniappe, which is a Cajun French term that just means something extra. This is a big lagniappe. This is a lot extra, but still, it's not the main course. It is a, God, I don't even know, dessert wouldn't be the right word, but it's something extra. It's, I don't know, to go. Jesus. Also, if you are a person who's worried that it's too hard, or if you're a person who is leaving bad reviews, you do know that things will be tweaked, right? I mean, they always are tweaked. You know, I proudly beat Radon before he was nerfed and became much easier. Like, things will happen in the future where some things are going to be tuned differently. Weapons will be buffed. Some things will be debuffed, even though I hope they don't do that. I want all the weapons to be powerful and usable. Games these days are living pieces of art, for better and worse, often worse. But in the case of FromSoft, I don't mind these tunings, even though it does sort of, it takes away from their idea, and what I've argued in the past in my previous video actually, that the appeal to these games, not having a difficulty setting, is the shared experience. And that is mostly true, but with an asterisk at the end, where the game does update and it is tuned, and also you can approach the game from a variety of different levels and abilities and everything, where really we're not all getting the same experience. But I think artistically it is a noble goal. I understand why they're reluctant to give like an easy mode, because part of these games is the struggle. And while I personally don't care about the struggle, like being real, I played Dark Souls 3 for the first time years ago with mods. I just wanted to see what the fuss was about, and I still had fun, but I could see, like, from the artistic point of view of the creators, that they don't want, like, I'm sure they're happy I played it, but that's not the intended artistic experience. Now, as an artist, I could also say, once you make art and it's out there, it's not yours anymore. So there's that counter argument. But I do think the people leaving bad reviews in lieu of maybe more nuanced reviews, they're being a bit hasty and a bit silly, especially because people's memories are really bad. Because I remember the discourse on Margit the Fell Omen, how so many people were stuck on him, and people whined about how unfair he is and whatever. And now no one gives a shit, because people learned how to fight him. People understood what the creators were going for. And I think this is a similar situation. I think give it time. If you're on the fence, you don't have to buy it immediately. There are other games to play. There are other things to do. It's summer, go outside. The game will be tuned. I'm not sure how. I'm not saying that bosses will be like easier, but there's going to be adjustments in damage output and whatever. But it is true that Shadow of the Erdtree, man, it got hands. People aren't used to normal enemies one-shotting or two-shotting you, and I came into the DLC expecting that, given FromSoft's history of doing kind of similar things, and also that I'm experienced enough in Elden Ring where I'm familiar enough with my builds to know how to handle it, I guess. I'm not a good Elden Ring player. I don't give a shit about the reflexes or the whole memorization things. I brute force all these games. And if I can get through Elden Ring, and if I can get through Shadow of the Erdtree, really, like, anyone can. It might take me a while, but I did eventually beat Melania once. Only once throughout multiple playthroughs. But still, it's doable. So if you're worried, chill out, explore the Shadow realm if you already bought it, put on a podcast and find some enemies to farm, find some of those scad tree things that allow you to level up your defense and attack power in the Shadow realm. Like, there are tools, there are things available. So yeah, that's my admittedly kind of centrist, both sides take with the discourse on whether or not it is too hard. It is hard, not gonna deny that. I just don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, even though I do have some minor critiques with how they handle difficulty with the DLC. but not enough to cause a fuss, and I'm excited to explore more. And that feeling of overcoming a difficult boss, that is still a good feeling. I don't always feel that after particularly hard bosses, but there's already been a few times where I'm like, cool, I got through this. I got through this with my normal build that I've been using all this time, the builds that I've been the Elden Beast with, and all the others. And I'm sure in the future, people will look back and be like, it was hard, but all this hype, all this discourse, it's overblown. But yeah, if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. Let me see where people on YouTube stand with this. And if you like this video, give it a like. If you like this kind of content that I do, subscribe. That'd be cool. I got rats. I'm the Rat Shepherd, and thanks for tuning in.